So I think that the key to understanding an inflationary cycle is that standing still, right? You can make money, but not stay ahead of inflation, right?
Right.
So interest rates will get you maybe even 20%, but that might not be enough, right? So you have to find what the fastest runner is to stay ahead of inflation, right? And so you have to find where that um, red hot uh, center of the inflationary spike will be, right? And so we got to see a very, and you know, a great example of it just in 2021 and 2022, right? The container shipping market, the
Right.
diesel market, all around it, right? Each time there will be different things, right? And that's a key aspect to remember where that the like locus of the inflationary wave, right? There are common things. I mean, it's probably going to be somewhere in energy and food, right? But what exactly where that ends up is something you have to watch for and watch as it develops. And you'll get an inflationary speculative frenzy in one area or another. And that's where you put the money in and let it sit for a year or two while it explodes upwards and then walk out, because understanding that that then is going to collapse in, right? Because it's not a sustainable equilibrium that you keep, inflation at 20% for 10 years. That's not how it happens. It's up to 20 down to 6, up to 20 down to 8, right? And the average is moving up over time, and we will see how the United States ends up dealing with it took a lot of political will and an accident of history almost that you had a chairman and a president that really disliked each other and were both very forceful personalities. So, we were fortunate in that way. And, how long until that happens, I don't know. But in the near term, it's a very, very politicized board that's going to be cutting interest rates faster than people expect. And so, you can make money directly by speculating on the path of interest rates. But you can also and should be very cognizant of how the flows of money you're going to run into, limitations on resources. And so, what are the things that people must have, and it's generally energy, right? It's not something you can substitute, right? If you're going to do something. So you're always looking for non-substitutable low elasticity items that people will pay anything for, right? And one of the things that's become very interesting is actually in the West Coast of the United States, a majority of the diesel fuel being sold is renewable diesel, which is
Right.
made with a chemical process from soybeans mostly. It can be a lot of things, but in the United States, it's soybeans. And so there had always been, or not, there had been for a long time, a feedback loop between corn prices and gasoline in the United States, right? Which was powerful enough,
Mhm.
and above, $8 a bushel or $3 a gallon. They really start to affect each other. That now is also taking place with soybeans, and is because the world uses diesel for transportation more than the United States. That has a much more powerful effect, right? So the draw on food supplies for energy will be a very heavy inflationary force, because what happens is you have if suddenly food prices go up, right? Say either diesel or soybeans go up, right? Each the other one sub of
Affects the other. Yeah.
stimulates demand for
Yeah.
the other, right? Because if the soybean prices go up, you want to have more farm activity, and that uses up more diesel. If diesel prices go up, then they use more renewable diesel, which draws on the soybean prices, which causes more farm activity, which causes more diesel usage. So it's a nasty little inflationary loop that the war in Russia has tightened that global supply of vegetable oils. And so it and also created this artificial trade in diesel, where diesel is going from the United States to Europe and then from Russia all the way to Asia. So that supply chain is hugely distended. And just like with the container shipping line and what we're seeing with inflation, measured inflation in goods in the United States, right? When a supply chain gets all distended like that and you get a lot of inventory on the water, problems happen, right? Because all of a sudden there's too much or too little inventory because the time that it takes, right? And not only does that affect directly the prices in the markets, but for those goods, but you also have the issue of the pressure on the shipping firms and the inventory holders, because you have interest rates rising, right? At a time when, if you have inflationary pressure, inflation, so the cost of financing that extra inventory that's sitting out there goes from zero to a much higher rate. And it creates a pressure all on its own. And so I just see a disaster waiting to happen in the diesel market. It could either originate from a shock in food prices, or it could cause a shock in food prices. So that will probably be the inflationary story of 2024 or 2025, right? But after, I'm expecting that there's going to be a period of really fast decline in inflation that is surprisingly fast, and that scares the Fed to a certain extent. They're going to say, oh, do we overshoot? Are we going to get a recession? And they're going to cut rates, and that's going to lead to just another inflationary boom. Everything happens slower than you expect it to. Yeah, so it's always right. So I probably, the inflation starts to heat up in early to mid 2024. And the fight at the Fed becomes then, should we raise interest rates right before an election? Uncle Joe says no. Right. And so we'll see. And there'll be another member of the board named by then. Again, this is another thing. I mean, Biden, without reason, he clearly he wanted to add another person to the board and to have someone on deck to replace Yellen. And so he moved Lael Brainerd from the board, who was an Obama appointee. Right. But she was a sound money, like sort of like lifetime bureaucrat. She was not just some PhD that he had gotten who was a campaign donor, not a major campaign donor, but a partisan. Right. Like these people are, and so, so he moved her over to the Council for Economic Advisors, basically to keep her on ice. Right, to open up the spot, but keep her around. Oh, I'm not firing you. I'm giving you another job that's, way less important and nobody cares about. But hey,